Sal Stetin was the last president of the Textile Workers Union of America, a storied union, the first union that I went to work for in 1972. Sal Stetin was a Polish immigrant, went from Poland to Paterson, New Jersey, found work in a textile dye house, and in 1934, the largest general strike in American history took place when 400,000 textile workers walked off the job for union recognition. Sal Stetin was a young worker in a factory in Paterson and became a shop steward and joined the union. He ultimately became the president of that union in 1972 and led the successful organization of the J.P. Stevens Company, one of the second largest textile company in America at the time, and one of the largest labor victories of the 70s for the entire labor movement. Sal was president of the union and gave up his position to merge his union with the Amalgamated Clothing Workers, Sidney Hillman's union. And Sal, who knew Sidney Hillman because Sidney Hillman was chairman of the board of the Textile Workers Union, Sal gave up his presidency to merge his union in order to win the Stevens campaign. He selflessly led the union, and for that, we honor him with the Labor History Award. Tonight's winner gives me a great deal of personal pleasure because Steve Fraser, labor historian, historian of class, historian of capitalism, and the author of this amazing biography of Sidney Hillman called Labor Will Rule, which really pointed up the importance of Sidney Hillman using his skill and expertise that he achieved in organizing clothing workers to help auto and steel and rubber workers organize in the CIO and became the political leader of the CIO. So Steve's biography of Hillman, Labor Will Rule, is a classic. And I have a special privilege because I've known Steve since we were both members of SDS. And actually, Steve and I belonged to a faction of SDS at a certain point, which called the Socialist Labor Committee, which was those student radicals who thought that maybe the labor movement was the way to change society. So it gives me a great deal of personal pleasure to award the Sal Stetin Award for Labor History for a career as a writer, editor, and incredible, and continues to be an incredible activist. So please welcome Steve Fraser as the winner of the Sal Stetin Award for Labor History. Steve.
Thank you all. It's an honor. It's humbling to be in the presence of so many past winners and present winners, and it is really humbling. I want to thank Bruce and Alexandra, who has me on a very tight leash in terms of time. If you had kept clapping, that would have helped me because I would have charged that time to Alexandra. But I have only, I think she said, 30 minutes to talk with you. Or is it 3? Yeah, it's 3. So I'm going to do that very quickly. But I thank the Hillman Foundation for this great honor. We live in dark times. It's worth noting that Sidney Hillman lived in dark times, as dark as the ones we're living in right now, hard to imagine. And yet those dark times gave rise to industrial democracy unknown before, a national social welfare state unknown before, a vigorous, rigorous supervision of the business community far greater than it had known before that. And more important than all of that, it had achieved for working people dignity where before that there was only humiliation and insult. And the reason that happened is because Hillman and millions of others realized that as dark as the times were, And maybe because the times were so dark, there was a moment that could be seized to change things in the way they did, and maybe only in such a dark moment as that. The question is, can we sense such a moment today? And now I'm going to be even briefer. This is, when there used to be Western Union, this would be a telegram. I'm just going to list these things in the last 10, 15 years. Occupy Wall Street, Bernie Sanders, WTF, I mean, from where? The enormous growth of what was a basically defunct, suffering from defunctitude, if that's a word, it isn't, socialist organization called the Democratic Socialists of America to become an organization of thousands and thousands across the country. From where? Black Lives Matter. The kind of energy, renewed energy in the labor movement among organized and unorganized workers that Bruce alluded to. The journalists that we see here and are honoring here today, unwilling to turn their eye from the underbelly of this kind of nihilistic capitalism we suffer from today. And finally, and this happened very recently, of all improbable things, May Day. May Day was murdered as the once celebrated working class anti-capitalist holiday 100 years ago. Hasn't been heard from since. President Cleveland murdered it, and Eisenhower murdered it again. I think Donald just did it again. The point is, it was dead. And yet, a few days ago, opposition to Trump all over the country, and of course here in New York, happened on May Day. I can't explain that, but I'm very, very happy it did. And for me, it's another sign that the moments are accumulating that we need to seize. And even here in New York City, that is true. There are socialists who hold public office in New York, city, and state, and around the country. Astounding. Hasn't happened for a century, which I think you all are aware. An extraordinary guy is running for mayor. Yeah, this guy Zoran Mondani, a socialist state assemblyman from Queens, who is running second and has been running second since this campaign began to the vampire in the race, Count Cuomo. That's extraordinary for that to have happened. And it's electrified parts of the city, young people particularly, and elements of the labor movement. I'm happy to report that just today, I think, Local 100 of Unite Here, once Bruce's union, endorsed Zoran Mamdani. Other unions have as well. Now, it is true that other unions have not, and either are agnostic or have endorsed the Count. Hillman, as you know, was a Russian Jewish immigrant, and Yiddish was his first language. And I know that people in this audience will not agree with me, but I have to say what I believe. I think he would have thought of it as a shanda, which, as some of you know, I know almost no Yiddish, but I learned this word. It means something shameful and disgraceful. Nonetheless, the moments are accumulating, and Hillman knew that kind of moment himself. There would be no CIO. There would be no New Deal. There would have been no labor insurgency in the 1930s had not people like Hillman confronted leaders who were afraid to seize the moment, who were too cautious or blind to that moment. And we need to be open to it. And so these are, let us call them Hillman moments that are accumulating and that I think we need to seize. Thank you very much.